Hello friends, it's October 23rd in the morning here from the wonderful environments of suburban Washington, D.C. And I wanted to talk a little bit about where we are today and what's going on in the news and so forth, and let's make it very succinct. I try to be as to the point as I possibly can, no fluff. Last night's debate was a clear victory for the president. He was absolutely on spot. He was on mark. He just batted every single thing out of the park in his own inimitable style, one after another, truth teller, unfiltered but very patient. I think the venue worked fine. I think it did. I don't have any problem at all with the mic situation. I think also that the president saw how effective Vice President Pence was in dismantling Kamala Harris. And recognized that he could get the same thing done with a lot less effort by letting Joe just, knit the rope that hangs himself, which is what he did, finally. When Joe finally got to the place where he was basically denouncing the American energy industry and saying that everybody who produces any kind of conventional, fossil fuels, even clean fossil fuels, natural gas, any of that, those are all going to be gone. He basically said it. He admitted that we're going to phase it all out. We're not going to have any of those things. We're not going to do those. And Trump actually stopped and just said, "Did you just say that? You want to confirm that?" And he did. He confirmed it. The minute he said that, I immediately watched in my mind. I watched as thousands upon thousands upon thousands, if not millions upon millions of voters that are dependent upon energy for their families' livelihoods and so glad to have these jobs now and have a future. These people are immediately ripped up their Democrat voter cards that moment. Essentially, Joe gave Trump Nation, I would say, an extra maybe 1 million votes last night by stating that, something like that, by stating that he was going to phase out all those fuel industries that had allowed us to become self-sufficient and independent. The president noted, he's a genius, he's a very intelligent man, he said, by being energy independent, we no longer have the impetus to go into foreign wars that end up doing nothing but benefiting the defense industries, big fat cat defense industries who don't care about so much about us defending our country as about advancing more and more wars in order to put more and more money in their bank accounts. And this has been a Democrat, never Trumper thing. John McCain was very much on board with that. Flake, Romney, Paul Ryan, all these neocon folks who became never Trumpers. These folks all were responsible for wasting millions upon millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars dumped into defense projects endlessly, and turning ourselves into a police force internationally and earning the enmity and anger of all sorts of local populations. That was a dumb, stupid, profit-driven system. And not to say there weren't wars to fight. There have, of course, been many that needed to be fought, but to have a policy of just always being in war so the defense industry can have a constant flow of profits pouring into them, no, it's not how it works. Can't work that way. And so Donald has basically said no to that. And once that happens, you start pulling out. All of a sudden, we have the opportunity to make trade deals, trade compacts. Traditional enemies, ancient enemies suddenly come back to the table, driven by the need to have economic prosperity. And the same thing Trump was alluding to when he said that right before the China virus hit, many, at least middle-of-the-road Democrats, were coming back around to see how they could work with the president. And that would be the very beginning of real unity, real national unity. Real national unity isn't ignoring Trump Nation's 80 million patriots and then just putting a Democrat in the White House. It's not unity. That would just create more division than you've ever seen before, possibly civil war. But by focusing on prosperity, on things that we all share and need and want, Donald Trump was actually creating the basis for true national unity. And that is one of the things that has driven me to be a very strong Trump supporter at this time. I think his economics-based philosophy is a peace philosophy, a philosophy that can actually bring the sides together through economic development. On the environment, we have noted that under our booming economy, where you'd expect to see giant increases in carbon emissions, just the opposite has occurred, because the impetus on development and technology in America and around the world is, of course, to reduce carbon footprints, reduce emissions, reduce pollutants. And so as we grow, we have the funds to invest in new technologies. As our economy booms under President Trump, we have the money to invest realistically, not government programs, but actual consumer-driven products that do reduce the carbon footprint. That's what we have. So that plan is an excellent plan for the environment as well. The TPP that they love, the Paris Climate Accords that they love to talk about, those accords basically said guilty America, who already went through the Industrial Revolution, has to pay to clean up India, China, etc., while they blithely produce goods without any kind of environmental limitations for the next 20 years. That would essentially be America tying its hands behind its back, destroying its own industries, allowing ourselves to be non-competitive with overpriced goods that we can't sell overseas because they're now very expensive due to all these environmental controls that Americans have to have, but not Chinese or Indians. Reduction of emissions, if this is of importance to you, can only come through robust economic development where the actual ground-up investment cash is available to put into new technologies, and that is a fact. Whether it's plastics made from waste products or any other great new inventions, I know there are quite a few companies out there doing that. These are driven by investment. This is very important to remember, and that's why you need economic growth and prosperity, and that's what Donald Trump was giving us. And he is giving us again, and he's doing it despite the COVID crap, with a very positive and optimistic and determined, no panic approach. And I really appreciate the fact that he's acting like a leader, like a Winston Churchill or George Patton, and not acting like a wimp, not acting like a quisling or someone ready to surrender and, peace at any price type. That's not what this president is. I really like him in that regard as well. The Hunter Biden laptop story, the press has tried so very hard to hide it from the public. They're censoring it and trying to discredit it, doing everything they can to make it seem as though anybody who would believe in this laptop is somehow, spreading disinformation. There's no disinformation. These are factual emails. These are actual factual emails from an actual factual laptop. And it's increasingly clear that when the FBI began investigating money laundering involving some of the companies that Hunter Biden was involved in, that they did subpoena the Hunter Biden laptop. And when they subpoenaed it, suddenly, just like with the Hillary phones that suddenly ended up being smashed and crushed and bleach-bitted after the subpoena, in the same way, Hunter seems to have tried to stash his laptop at the repair shop, sort of off the beaten track in a little strip mall. Just leave it there to be repaired endlessly till after the election. And can get it back later. Hopefully nobody would have gone in and messed around with his emails by then. It was a perfect place, perfect foil place to hide the laptop during the election season, keep it out of Dad's election campaign. But the only problem was the idiot Hunter Biden didn't realize there was a 90-day abandonment clause in his contract. If he doesn't come back and get it, even though they've tried like crazy to get it back to him, which he did, he called, therefore that laptop becomes the property of the store at that point. And at that point, he has the right to do any damn thing he wants with it. So, made mirror copies of it, looked into it a little bit and found out it was full of all kinds of trash and garbage and dirt that Hunter Biden had been involved in. So he gave it to the FBI in the assumption that the FBI was an impartial third party that would investigate the legalities. But the FBI has not yet cleansed itself of deep stater, rhino, never Trumpers. There are still some in the FBI. The director of the FBI is also a never Trumper. Christopher Wray is a never Trumper. He is a deep stater. He basically is suppressing investigations and suppressing information and steering things in the direction that do not affect the Democrat Party negatively. They basically are the descendants of Peter Strzok and McCabe and other people who engaged in dirt and treason and criminality in their attempts to overthrow the President of the United States. Christopher Wray is of the same cloth. He's like Mueller over at DOJ. He's a con man Democrat leftist. And it's unfortunate that when we ask for basic trust from a nominee like Christopher Wray, basic trust that you'll do the job and you'll do it without politics, like A.G. Barr is doing it, where justice and the law is everything, Christopher Wray has not, absolutely not adhered to that philosophy or that principle. He has held on, there was no reason at all to held on to this laptop since last December without going into it, discovering what it is, and starting an investigation that could have probably prevented Biden from even being nominated. But they didn't. They sat on it knowing perfectly well what it was, and they presented and created a nice foil so that when it did come out, they could say, you know, the news media could say, oh, must not be real since they haven't verified it yet. Well, they verified that it is not a Russian disinformation operation, and they should have gone forth and stated these are actual emails. Now, this fellow Bobulinski, who was a man of honor, actually, and non-political, but he was involved in one of Biden's, scummiest China joint ventures that Hunter had even attempted to throw Bobulinski out of it so he could make even more money off this scheme. Well, this scheme involved payments to Joe Biden. There's no question about it. Bobulinski came out yesterday, gave a press conference. If you haven't seen it, look it up, in which he corroborated and verified every one of the emails that Hunter Biden sent. He said those are his emails, that's his laptop, corroborated. Fox News, corroborated. Several other outlets have corroborated the emails, have corroborated the laptop. Everything about it is corroborated. The timeline corroborated. All of the evidence, far, massively more evidence than they allowed for the phony Russian dossier that Hillary paid for to try to spy on the Trump campaign and harm him.